people. I hope you're having a great day. You've had food, you have had water, you have everything you need to do done. Where is the stream music so I actually get this up? There it is. Boop, do I have that at an acceptable volume? Mostly. We are continuing day 2 of 4 of getting stuff done. I did catch up. Last night we finished off. I only got a little bit into actually excavating and building the south entrance. I did get it done off camera. We're gonna go over all the things I got done off camera, because I finally finished up a bunch of chores I needed to get done. Today we're gonna be working on the east entrance. We have to design that real quick, and I'm gonna have to be a little creative because I have no idea where it's gonna end up or how I want to connect this or how anything's gonna happen. But we're gonna do our best and then also build that. And I did collect more spruce wood, so we don't have to worry about that this time, because I did have to deal with that last time, unfortunately. Also last time, the community challenge for 10,000 channel points wrapped up. So we have a new challenge going. Again, 10,000 channel points for 1 week, which is hardcore amalgamation. I must genuinely try to survive it and kill the dragon in amalgamation hardcore. Of course, my phone's going off as I'm trying to explain this. Hold on, I had this conversation last night. I need to not do notifications off. I need to do not disturb. So if I need important text messages, I still get important text messages. But rules to be decided when I do the thing. Because I'm thinking either that will be a one-off stream depending on what projects I'm doing at the time, or I will continuously try at that challenge until I am successful at it. It depends on what all's going on. I think that's about everything getting started into this. I'm gonna get us... I've been on the server all day. I have not logged off. Well, I logged off since last night, but since I logged on today, I have not gone off. So we're gonna run over to gameplay, where I am currently sitting down here because I was trying to not let the campfire ruin the audio for the intro. I did work. I did some work. There's a farm plot here. I was originally going to clean it up, and then I decided, you know what? No, we're just going to hold on. There's a spot here. There we go. I'll just clean it. I'll just actually get it done. And then I planted a bunch of trees around. I threw bone meal around, which thankfully doesn't look like it too much because I got rid of all the tall grass. That's not the right button. Most of the tall grass. And not only did I do that for over here, that is a really weird tree. I haven't seen a single cherry tree. That is just a single. Okay. There's a little more crop over here, and these trees carry on around this entire thing. I have them going down and more bone meal. And I did continue the trees all the way down, and now you can see what I was thinking of when I first terraformed this area. The little river of trees and a few trees by the portal, which gives us this glorious, if I turn on shaders for a split second here, this glorious view that I just adore. And then I continued a few trees over here, and these paths have been here. I chopped all of these down and replanted half of them, so the other half is free for whatever places people need. And you know what? Let's save the surprise. Let's save the surprise a little bit for how it looks on the outside. We're gonna come down here and all the way down here. This is a very small thing. It wasn't really on my list, but it's something useful to have. I've done some configuration like this in most of my worlds, and I did it several times in different spots in the first season of Passion SMP. Basically, I can just sit here and mine away at blocks for however much I need. And then it all ends up in that dropper, and apparently I didn't collect everything. So I'm just gonna throw this into here, and I will deal with it later. Because that is the choice I am choosing to make right now. And this is later gonna be a storage facility for all the farms if we manage to do that. That's gonna be done Friday, because I want all of this to be done by Friday. It is currently Wednesday, and today for Wednesday, we're going to be over there making the east entrance. But first, I finished the south entrance. It is all the way done. It took me another hour or two to get done. And then I went around and decorated a little bit around here. And I'll probably spruce it up a little more. I threw some birch trees around so it's not so barren. So it feels a little bit more alive over here. And I think that's actually all I've done. Pretty much. I was gonna go down there, but then I remembered we need to log on to a copy of the world in order to put in the staircase. And I'm probably gonna need to immediately grab materials after that, so we're gonna hop into the room I'm probably gonna need, which holds all my wood, and I got a whopping fair amount of spruce wood, and it's actually now more than the dark oak I have. So that's fantastic. And with all of that caught up, we're gonna run over to the copy world to design the schematic. And yet again, I have a cup of nice hot tea. Just black tea. And we're gonna oh yeah, I had to test out some things. You can't pick up shulker boxes, and me attempting to fix this would just crash the game. And I have the Enderman here because I was trying to see if I could still pick up hostile mobs. Which apparently broke again, so it's not something that's currently in a thing I'm worried about. I'm pretty sure we should still be able to pick up hostile mobs in general on the server, but because I messed with my config so much, it probably got changed at some point. So that should be all fine and dandy. But this is the part we care about. If I have these here, I'm gonna safely assume... Thankfully, I already have a schematic for this, and it shouldn't have the same problem of us designing this one, which was I didn't reach the top of the mountain. This, because where I'm standing, we might have that problem, but I don't think so. I think it should fairly well. I don't have commands on schematic, load, MegaBase stair, no air. And it should be facing north, so we're going to rotate 90. And paste -A. Does that correctly paste? No, I need to be one block back. Paste. And then because... Yes, I know. Update Axiom. Oh, it's a new version available. Yeah, sure. Oh, that's a download. Okay, hold on, never mind. I will deal with that later then. We're gonna just right-click that, delete, because Axiom is amazing. And that should all line up correctly with what's already existing. Fantastic. But it does not make it to the surface. Question is, how far off am I? And I still have Penguin's head in the schematic. How far off are we? It's the same problem as last time. Oh, that's sad how close it is, actually. Last time I had like a fair amount between it. I was only halfway. Hey, Deep Dark. I was only halfway. This is like 20 blocks below. That's a little sad. But because we're still on the same world, I should be able to just run over here. And I could be able to copy paste real quick. We're gonna grab an axe and obsidian, because why not? Or do I still have the area I had copy pasted from? There should be a little mark in the middle of this from me mining into the side of it. No? Oh, there it is. Yes. Yes, it is. So I need to line this up with the torch right there. So I'm gonna copy paste this all the way from down here to make sure all of it lines up correctly. We're gonna do first and second position there, just so I make sure it's all correct. And for the utmost care that I actually have all of this correct, I'm gonna go to this edge. Or because I'm lining it up to this, let's go with this instead. Because I'm lining it up to each column. And then copy paste that. We stand right here in the correct spot, lined up with the torch in the center. We do copy. And then chunk layers. And there's the end of the staircase. Lined up. Like so. That's the wrong block. There we go, like so. We're gonna rotate. 90. Paste minus A. This is why I use diamond blocks. So I can do that. And now I can just walk straight up here. And easily do this all the way up. And I could have done this in a much larger sprint, yes, but I want precise control of this. Okay, do I want... I think this is just fine, and then we can terraform this. I want to terraform this by hand. Okay. Because I also have to consider I need to fix up these at the end as well. This will be 5 across. This would as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. I just gotta fix this up and then we can worry about everything else. There should be an erase tool I have by hand, on hand, handy. And delete that section to save me some heartache. Oh, nope, nope, nope. Don't do that to me. That is not what I need to do. And this actually amazingly connects up to this cave, so we can use this to help with some of our terraforming. So instead of terraforming this entire area all the way out to this mountainside, I can just use the cave as a natural entrance and then do a little round out here. I'm not going to worry about doing that right here, right now. All I want to do and make sure that it's in the schematic is I boop, boop, boop. And then I gotta fix up. I need more room to do this. Let's go out 3. Delete. There we go. And I need to remember how I actually make these. Cause I forget every single time I make them how I do it. Let's throw this over to the side. Let me check. I want to make sure music's not too loud. No, it's not too loud. I'm gonna put it a little lower though, because I have sensitive little ears. But that might be too quiet. Because the live streams get the live music. And the VODs do not save it. And I'm pretty sure it goes something like that. And to save myself heartache and annoyance later, I'm just gonna do that. Otherwise, it's just annoying. It just is. Although from building the south entrance, it is 1,000 times easier for me to... I don't think I need this one. Or do I? I forget how I do these every time I do them. I literally did this not 24 hours ago. I did do that. I did. Distant Horizons, you shouldn't be loaded right now. You should not be actually working. Yeah, you're turned to false. You are false. You should not be doing a thing. You are just incorrect. Also, so I don't have the schematic being weird and lagging out my game. I'm gonna do that. Just tells it to all stay in one spot so it doesn't mess me up. And then something like this. And I'm gonna put some dirt blocks there. So I can fill this up with dirt later, and I don't actually have to do too much as far as designing goes. Or maybe I might have to do that because of all this. And like this. I think that's about it. This is the good thing about making a build that I can just copy-paste everywhere and was specifically made to be copy-pasted. Because it does not take me a lot to design the thing at all. And so we can just kind of run with whatever's going on at the given moment. So let's assume I actually get this down to this point. And then we're gonna do and we're gonna do that and assume I'll put a bunch of dirt down there. And I think that's it as far as this entrance goes. I seriously thought I was gonna end up like down here, but I suppose not. I suppose not. And this is the last entrance too. Okay, cool. So now all I got to do, we come to this corner and make sure I got all that I need to have in here. We go one corner. And then we're going to teleport all the way down because I don't feel like slowly creative flying down there. Down to about here. And we're going to move the second corner to me, which highlights all of that, but we need to move that a few over. That is not correct. That is not correct. That is... There we go. So that should be one over, and that should encompass just about everything. I'm gonna do this, make sure it's one lower so it can actually encompass that floor. And it should have all of this fully encased now. I barely can't see that chunk up there. So let's double check my work. I'm going to move that one block above just in case. It shouldn't cut anything off. That's not how this works, but in the odd chance that it does, I think that's just fine. Perfect. Okay. And now we have to set an origin point, which just tells me when I stand in this spot, if I stand at a certain spot, this is where you put the schematic. So usually you'd put it like, oh, straight in front of the stairs. So if you stand in front of it, it generates right in front of you. I don't trust that I have this as I need to have it in the actual world. I have that slightly cut off. So I'm instead going to stand in a spot I trust and I know is here for certain. And I'm going to set this point to my origin. And now we can rename this schematic to East and Trans. Save inside of a little folder I have specifically for the MegaBase. Save schematic. Failed to... It's not... East and Trans. Save. And a schematic saving task is created because I'm missing a few chunks for it to load. There we go. And now it's had all the chunks loaded and the schematic saved. And all we got to do is run onto the server, collect the stuff, and then start excavating. Which is by far faster than any of my other times trying to do this. Well, actually, yes. Failed. Oh, you suck. That just means I have to reload the game. Which, yeah, fair. I've had it open for, let's say about 6 hours. I think that's accurate. I think that's about the time I've been on. Something like that. It's pretty close. Pretty similar. Yeah, about... Oh, it's over 6 hours now, actually. So I took a half hour of digging to figure out if I could fix the shulkers being picked up or not. I couldn't. I could actually probably figure it out from the crash reports. Honestly. 12:25, and that's from... Those are just... Are those today? Those were today, yes. That's 22. 20. Yeah, I got on about 12 o'clock. Oh, and these are different days. So yeah, I started getting crash reports about 12:20, so... Yeah, had my lunch. Started crashing Minecraft. Then played Minecraft the rest of the day. Listened to a D&D campaign. The usual. Okay. Back in. Distant Horizons. I know you're upset about me having low memory. Why are you not pulling up? There we go. We're gonna find the east entrance, material list. We're gonna ignore a bunch of items because we don't need a whole bunch of this. It's just random items that have also shown up. Because all of this already exists in the natural world. We don't gotta worry about that. I do need the torches. I don't need anything else. I do need those and that. Blocks of diamond are left over from me not doing the schematic properly. So we need... Let me grab a note card. Oh, this is slightly less than yesterday. Yesterday was 35. So just a little bit less today. Where's... This is the right one. I have two pencils I really like. I have a pink one that's 0.7, and these are both mechanical. 0.7 lead, and a blue one that's 0.5, and by far I love my 0.5. It is fantastic for writing. I started writing 0.5. I don't need to write that. We need spruce planks. I am fully writing this out, because yesterday I explained, oh yeah, I have a system for writing things out shorthand. And then I proceeded to misunderstand my own system. And I got 5 odd stacks of dark planks when I need dark oak stairs. So I'm just gonna straight up write this out. Stripped spruce logs, and we're gonna see how tiny I can write this all out, so it's roughly the same area. We're gonna do 16x, which tells me the stacks, and then 43. And then dark oak stairs, fully written out, so I don't make the same mistake again. And then we're doing 5 stacks and 40 of that. We need torches, 30. 9 upgraded torches. I'm curious how it got the number 9. That is interesting. Because I was expecting it to only have 2. We'll see, we'll see. Upgraded torches. I would be amazed if I could read this in an hour. Because this is half doctor scribbles more than anything. Dark oak log. 6. There we go. And now I can grab my beloved green. And we can quickly grab up all of this in a backpack. Because I'm hoping I can fit... Last time I needed 2 because of the ridiculous amount of spruce things I need. We need 34 stacks. So let's get started with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, which will give us another 16. Why am I trying to do it like that? Which makes 24. Excuse me, thank you. And then 1, 2 makes another 8. I need to do basic math. 16 plus 8 is No, it's 24. 24 plus 8 is 32. Which means I'm gonna do 1 more stack of this. Gives us 34. And 23, or... No, that'd be 36, because it's 9s. That should be 27. 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Yes. And then 23. With just a little bit extra, almost a full another 4 stacks of wood. But that means that is done. And then we need 16 stacks and 43 stripped logs. Which one am I using right now? This one? 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, a full inventory of mine is 18. I think just about, because I have... Yeah, that should be 18. Because I have 9 slots here, 6 here, and then 3 empty here. So that's 18. That would now be 17. And then we're going to switch this up. So 1 stack is 43, which is the extra I need. And now I can turn all of these very slowly. Well, not slow, very slowly. I do have a ridiculous amount of slower ways to do this. This is by far the fastest method. Technically, chopping of an axe is faster, but it doesn't do an entire stack at once. It does, however, also give me bark, which gives me paper, but that's not a specific need I have at the moment. This is the random ores backpack that I'm gonna throw up into there. Actually, I'm gonna drop it down here so I remember and put a placehold in the meantime. And boop. And that's why we have the second backpack. Boop, boop. And then we need a whopping 5 stacks of 40 stairs. We can make... We have almost enough here. That makes 37. I'm gonna grab this. And that, which gives us 41. Which is 1 extra, and that means we can grab boop and turn this into 4 stacks of stairs, which gives us 4 and 40, 5 and 40. Math. It's helpful for Minecraft building. We need 30 torches. So there's 15 sets of columns, because I have 2 torches per column. Or 2 torches... I have a torch per... 2 torches per set of columns, I should be more precise. There's a torch per column. And apparently 9 upgraded torches somehow, some way. It's probably got picked up for me adding a bunch of torches around the place, but I will humor the schematic and grab the 9 torches. And then is asking for 6 stripped dark logs. I am not sure where these are going to pop up. I am merely going to humor the schematic. There we go. And it is nighttime in-game, so we're gonna run up, sleep real quick. And we're gonna actually go down to the MegaBase, place the schematic, and then run up stairs to the surface to start demolition. Because that is by far the easiest way to do it. Mining up is no fun. Mining down, however, is far easier. And how we're going to do this, I'm going to completely fill my inventory with spruce wood. And I'm not going to bother picking up blocks. I don't need them. I really don't. If there's one thing I don't need in this world, it is stone and deep slate. I don't need coal, I don't need ores, I don't need a damn thing. I am not hurting for ores and blocks at all. Okay, maybe tough a little bit because I used a bunch. I'm not hurting for blocks. Yeah, I don't think I need more copper. I need not for anything. All I need is to get this done. That is what I want in this world. I want to see, last time what we went about is I like mining and doing planks at the same time, but I've been doing this with my pickaxe. We have mods on the server. I have Big Ham. So I want to try doing this with Big Ham. I'm gonna fill inventory of blocks ASAP, so I don't have to worry about this. I don't use my sword nearly as much as anything else. And we're gonna turn on my easy place so I can start spamming all this. If I could actually fly the correct way I intend to, that'd be fantastic. Good. And thankfully I can just arch that over, and I don't have to worry too much about filling in petty little gaps. Maybe I might need to fill in gaps. Yeah, I do need to fill in gaps there. There's a few gaps to fill in. I am incorrect. Okay. Can I fill this completely from the bottom? Almost. I can't do that top portion, and I can barely reach some of those. Oh, I have thing covering that. Thank you, Kofi Bot. It is much appreciated. Is there a block there that I need to place? Yes, there is. Is this slightly different from what I've done before? Yes. Do I care? No. Are people gonna notice? Probably not. I'm not gonna waste the energy or sanity caring way too much about the little details. We are going for 80% here. 80% effort. As long as it's fully done and satisfactorily done, we're good. I will worry about not more. And I think with this lineup, I should probably more so do something like this. I do have some blocks in my inventory, but it's kind of good to have sometimes if I'm over mining areas. That was the struggle last time. I was trying to figure out if I did want to use the destructor hammer or not, and I ended up not at all the entirety of that. Because I was worried about mining bad spots and having to spend more time rebuilding areas than I was excavating. And that probably... Did that mine out blocks that I didn't need to? A little bit. It's not something I have to super worry about, though. And this is going to look so weird until we get back up here and start fixing this. So I want to excavate all of this first. That is the immediate priority here. Oh, that's fine. Okay. Hence why I like to keep one stack of whatever random block I need at the time in my inventory. If I'm in the stone area or stone section of the underworld, I will keep a bunch of stone on me. If I'm in deep slate, keep a bunch of deep slate, whatever I need. It's a very small portion of deep slate, but it is there because I'm just barely under the crust of the stone. That is a choice of words, but it fits, so we're sticking to it. Crust of the stone. I mean, as far as adjectives go, yes, that is correct. It's just an interesting choice. Tape ball? Hello, Billy Bob. What is the update on the tape ball? Last I heard several hours ago, it was almost 4 pounds. Have you surpassed 4 pounds? Also, we are yet again continuing a lot of mining, because apparently that's all I do on the server. The last set of Passion SMP streams was just me terraforming my base, and now we're terraforming for a build, so technically. I am doing small amounts of terraforming for the entrances, but... Well, small amounts pan over to the other side where I terraformed this entire area for the west entrance. Because it intersected with the bridge I had built there just like a week prior, and I didn't want to have to redo the damn thing. So I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to terraform the entire area instead. No big deal. I say as I waste another day of my life only playing Minecraft and doing nothing else in particular. I've been putting 1 roll of tape on it, but normally I use 2 rolls. Whoa. So only slight change, I assume that is to mean. I want to see... Okay, how far down do I need to go for this? And how far can I get away with for the destructor hammer? Actually, let's set ourselves a baseline here. Excuse me. I'm trying to do an experiment here. We gotta be a little creative about how we do this, okay? Because if I remember how this is sectioned out correctly, if I destroy specifically this line using the destructor hammer mines a 5x5 area, I am perfectly fine to do one line through the entire center of this and it won't mess up anything, and it will give me a very good guide of how far I can mine down and where I can mine. So we're going to do one strip. I'm not going to worry about the stairs. The stairs are something really easy. It's going to be one of the last things I place. The order we're going to go about this is excavate. We're going to do this strip first. Then we'll do the side strips and all the spruce wood that comes with it, and only the spruce wood. And then once all of this is excavated, I will go back through the stairs, and then I'll go back through and do the columns. That is simply the fastest way to go about this. And I feel like I could be doing this faster than slowly doing little strips. I need to go down just enough that I'm making decent progress, but not too far down that I can't mine the blocks above me. There we go. I just realized most of the lag you get... The most you get to see me in IRL is my legs and my hand. Fair. And thank you for contributing 2,000 to the community challenge for hardcore amalgamation. Rules further to be decided later. Because I'm not sure if I just want to do that as a one-off stream, or if I want to have that be a mini-series that I'm genuinely trying to succeed at. We will see. It depends on what projects we got. And how much effort I'm putting into them. That's the most I can do this stream. No worries. We will also be streaming tomorrow and the next day, and I will see what we do Saturday. It depends on how much editing I get done. And I'm gonna definitely have to message Penguin about that, because we're trying to figure out when we could next do continue amalgamation, because it's had to take a backseat to this. And we still got more to do tomorrow and the day after. So that's great. That's fantastic. I love that so much. You'll see what we do Sunday too. I know I want at least like one day in between where I just have like a nice evening to myself. Because lately it's been every single evening I have a stream. I've streamed every day this week so far. And I love streaming, I do. I genuinely do. Although I don't think I'll ever beat my record. My current longest stream I've ever done was really early on into me streaming. I wasn't doing face cam, I'd even have a PNG tuber at the time. I wasn't doing any of that. But I did, I think it was a 7.5 hour stream of Subnautica. Did a single person watch? Fuck no. I think I might have had a few random people show up here or there. I don't think I got anything significant from that, but damn did I enjoy just playing Subnautica for 8 frickin' hours straight. I think I did like a small break in the middle to grab a bite of food or something. But I did that the entire day until dinner. And it is still the longest stream I've ever done. And ow, my shoulder hurts. Just gonna stretch my neck real quick, because that's probably what the problem is. I'm starting to realize if my right shoulder's being a pain, it's probably actually just my neck being tense. A lot of muscles are interconnected like that. And there's race car in the game. I should make a group. That should be a thing I do, because I'm going to be here for the rest of the time. Open. There you go. Because I do plan on sticking around here. And, oh, dear stars, I forget how high. We're only at 70. We're not even at water level. We're not even down that far, and we're doing one strip right now. Do you see why I want to try the Destructor Hammer? Do you see the issues that are occurring here? Also, I still have the checklist in front of me, and I'd even check up the last thing. So let me move this off to the side. Because tomorrow kinda has a schematic, kinda not. I just need to copy-paste the rice farm and dismantle the crop farm. So I think I might, depends on what I can get done tomorrow. I might try and dismantle the crop farm off camera, just so we can immediately go and build the rice farm on camera. But it's a very small thing. It's literally one room. So I probably could get it done all at once. The only problem I see is I need to get lichen for that farm. And pistons. Pistons aren't nearly as much of a problem, but lichen would be. Also, fair warning, Billy Bob, near me is going to be a lot of blocks. Because I'm just mining it out right now and I'm not picking any of them up. They are just on their despawn timer. It's not too many, but it might be enough to lag you out a bit. Oop, there we go. Mined a few too many. Oop. Let me remove those. I'm only down at 53. I can't even find gold yet. I forget the scales of the projects I do sometimes. This is next season, I just want to do small scale stuff. I don't know exactly what I want to do yet. I just know I want to do extremely stylized, very small scale builds. What my brain decides to latch on for that? Who knows? Who knows? I have no clue what I want to do for that. My automatic compulsion just says Sky Islands, and then I can make really pretty magical builds, but that's not really my style. I've always been inspired by Skyrim stuff, but Skyrim is also kind of bleak. I could maybe get away with some hyper stylization and colorization of that, but I want to look into how I paint first. I need to get back into like digital art. Or like art in general. I've been trying to get myself to doodle way more, which is working and not working, because I just haven't had the time at all this week to do the doodle pages I'm supposed to be doing. I want to do like 4 a day. I do not have a large sketchbook to fill out. This is like a 8x5 inch or something that I have. I've maybe done 6 pages total in the last week, which is not good progress. But I'm tempted, I really am thinking about doing an art stream in the next week or so and take either a screenshot of one of my own builds or take maybe a Skyrim screenshot if I'm feeling up to it. And I just revitalize it and recolor it myself. I don't know how, why, what that would happen. I'd probably just go about painting techniques. I have a painting brush I've been liking. Might get laggy. What are you doing? Is the question. You're just flying out that way. Okay. I will... No worries. I will trust you. 20 minutes later, we're just gonna hear the Ender Dragon die. Oh, that's not the correct direction for it, so maybe not. We're gonna make the schematic upset because gravel doesn't float like that. Chunk loading. Okay. Gravel upset because it wants gravel. Gravel upset? Well, I guess the gravel would be upset. Schematic upset because it wants gravel to be here. Be there. That's not how gravel works. So it shall not be. Hey, there it is. Okay, we're almost there. Almost. Wait, I need to get back into doing more art and painting. I need to just go get myself some canvases and actually do it physically. I would love to do that. I need to do that. I've been doing digital art for years at this point, especially with Mew and everything, because Mew's changed my style fundamentally. And because I was being lazy about it, I'd only ever open up my digital art program. So I've gotten way more in tune with how I draw digitally than how I draw with physical mediums, which is a bit of a problem sometimes. Because I kind of need to understand how I do both. And I'm trying to get back into the rhythm of that, but it's happening. It's going very slowly, at a snail's pace. But it's at such a snail's pace that it feels like if I turn back around, it's just gonna explode if it dares touch me. But wait, it's a work in progress. I'm slow going. It's slow going. Speaking of slow going, hey, look, that's where I need to be. Still another, like, 16 odd blocks, something like that to get to. It's fine, it's fine. It's just very slowly. I used to not understand how people hated mining through Deep Slate, because I would easily just spend afternoons mining through Deep Slate with subpar tools. And now I'm here with a diamond netherite pickaxe that's modded, and it's still slow as hell. It's still slower than it should be. And I understand. I understand now. Okay. Let's look at this realistically. I want to see... Let's do this real quick. Because there is absolutely an area of space where this is best to do. And I need to be careful about where I can't. So let's get some guidelines going here. Or maybe I should start this from the top. I should start this up above, not down here. This is the worst... This is the hugest and smallest staircase ever. Okay. So... This is 5 blocks down. Oh, you suck. You're lucky that didn't ruin anything. I haven't placed anything over here. I need like a blank canvas to actually figure out and start this, because my brain can't work with all of the random assortments of caves and such in the way. You gonna come right in there? Thank you. So we're gonna mine out and get rid of these 3 odd blocks that are making it hard for my brain to function. Get rid of all of that, pretty please. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Get rid of all of that. Don't need it. Don't need it. Goodbye. Gone. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Out of here. Goodbye. 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 Thank you. Goodbye. I need to turn that back on. Thank you. Too many blocks there. Clean up that. Start building up some of this that needs to be built. Get the tiny spots that are annoying. Step up here before I forget to. Get rid of that. And slowly do this as needed. Okay. Where is 5 blocks down that won't mess up anything? That's 4 blocks. Where's the corner of this that I can absolutely hit? I think it's there. So test. Because if I fully figure out how I need to do this without messing up a thing, that saves me time. How much does that destroy, though? I can't see from down here. If I go over 1 block, that should mostly be safe except for that corner, but I can replace that corner piece. And I need to do that anyway. Okay, perfect, 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 perfect. Can I line this up with a specific spot that makes it easy? One block off the column? Seems to work. There are absolutely going to be things I need to do by hand, just because of the nature of this. But if I can help and get most of this done with the hammer, then that would be fantastic. And I think we can. I think I found the perfect ratio. Just the perfect spot. Let's full send, complete trust. That spot. but the problem is I do need to get rid of that ahead of time. I need to remember to actually do these little divots beforehand. Except if I don't, let me actually start this sentence correctly. If I don't, it recreates the problem I had with the destructor hammer and building versus not building in the first place. Or building versus excavating in the first place. So as long as I stick to plans, and I actually excavate the little pieces that are annoying as I go, then this should be absolutely a surefire strategy for getting this done way faster. So I'm thinking let's just go down this entire side. If I'm going back and forth, it's going to take me way longer. We're just going to go down this entire left-hand side and then come back up and do the right-hand side. And sure, this could probably be done faster by me doing single areas first, but I really want to see how good this is comparatively. Because last time I only got maybe, I think it was like some 30, 50 blocks down in the 2 hours we streamed. Granted, I was only excavating for, let's say, an hour and a half of that, something like that. I cut us off just a little short of 2 hours. If I remember, this is not correct anymore. So maybe I need to instead remember so many blocks. 3 from the red. That seems to do the exact same thing. Yes. 3 from the red. Got it. That did exactly what I needed to do in the correct spot that I needed it. Perfect. Okay. Strategies, unfolding, brain exploding, and fantastical strategies and ideas. As long as I correctly execute them. Because that is the #1 problem here. Get rid of all that. I also love to make my life hard and do all the little details that I really didn't need to do. And next time I'm not doing this to myself. I'm not doing a giant underground base and insisting I must have an entrance for each side because my base is that frickin' big. Okay, we're gonna try, it's 3 away from the red. That seems to be a-okay. I could probably get away with just 2 from it, though. So we'll try that next and see if that might be more helpful. Excuse me. Thank you. Just slowly get this all done. Because, geez, wow, I have given myself, yet again, a giant project, and I assume I can do it in a inhuman amount of time. Oh, I missed, like, all of this. There we go. And there's definitely stuff I'm gonna have to be more particular about later. Oh wait, hold on, I can do this like that. Perfect. So no, that should be perfect, because if I do it one more, then I'm gonna have to start replacing blocks there. So it has to be that 3-way. Because of this section over here. Just save myself the pain later. Boop. So I don't accidentally forget. So 3 away from the red is right here. And then boom. Which is just perfect that it doesn't mess up anything. And it saves me at least a little bit of time because there's far less I have to meticulously destroy. Because I am honestly at this point trying to speedrunning this. Any stratch I can come up with to help with that, I will attempt. Also, for the sake of checking in on Billy Bob shenanigans. Let me open the minimap, see how far. Oh, where did you go? Okay, you're just not in the overworld. I was very concerned you were like 10,000 blocks for 10,000 blocks for a second. Never mind. You're just in the nether. Go to the nether. So apparently that's in my brain like the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. That factoid hit a very specific generation. I don't think it's ever going to hit another generation the same. It's just too oddly specific that it doesn't matter to anybody else. Is there any other meme that really hits the same like that? I can't think of it. It is the true you gotta be there inside joke. There we go. Yeah, we're already down at 80. Excuse me, sir? I'm doing a study right now, thank you. I must figure out my own inane bullshit within these 2 hours. And hopefully get as much as I can done in the next short while. The next hour here, actually. So we're just closing up on it. This... Never again. Never again. No. 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 I need to remember 3 off. Otherwise, I'm going to hate and despise when I don't need to. Why do I hear Zomboy? That is why I hear Zomboy. He can wait till later, it's not his turn yet. We come back for the right side later. Well, let's left side right now. Might have done that one a little bit off. But that's fine, it's still saving me plenty of time. Even when I'm doing this incorrectly, it's still far more helpful than purely doing this by hand. It's literally that much of a time saver. Because it doesn't take a small amount of time to mine. I gotta math some odd 100 blocks. It's over a stack of blocks. That mining a 5x5x5 area gives you. Because that's 5 sets of 25, so it's at least 100. I think the answer is literally just 125, and I should have immediately clocked that. But streamer brain does as streamer brain does. And it doesn't consider the immediate, obvious answer. Let's try 2 paces off. Yeah, that's fine. That's minimal cleanup. And I'm not going to worry about filling the interior of this. I don't care. I do not care. Theoretically, then, the only thing I care about, because I'm building over top of this, the only thing I care about is the surface, so I could really just wham-bam through all of this. Or not the surface, the ceiling/roof of this. So I could really plow through a lot more of this if I stop caring about the stairs. But I do slightly care about them because of how the columns are placed on the sides. So we'll keep up with what we're doing here. I think I could be more precise about it if I start. You don't have to cut this entire area. If I cut one and then I'll show in a second. It's hard to explain. I will just struggle and not make a lick of sense. Did I place all the planks I need to here? No, I did not. And I didn't even get rid of these. So that's all that. So I'm going to continue 2 off, right there. If I come up here again, I don't have to do it all the way over here. I could do it on this edge and do another one on that edge. I don't think that's going to be helpful in this one, so I'm going to continue doing it right there. Because I did it a little farther off. If I find the sweet spot of all that, I could get away with 3 hammer strikes. And perhaps save myself more time of meticulous mining. Please, thank you. Place all of these. There we go. Perfect. Because if I do this right here, I think I could get away with. And then jump up here. I need to also mine out this area before I forget, and I struggle with it from down below. Get rid of all that. Thank you, Kofi Bot. There we go. And then do a spot from right here. I could get away with a little bit. I could have gotten away with a lot more from that. So yeah, I could definitely get away with 3 hammer strikes. I'm gonna have to place these precariously. But I can absolutely get away with that. Because now I only had to mine like 5 blocks over on this side. Granted, it did get rid of some of my stairs back up, but whatever, it's fine. For the moment, anyhow. I will be placing on top of that later. And I missed that singular block right there. Okay. Another experiment. We're gonna go 2 off. Which should leave me very little to have to meticulously destroy. And I haven't done this entire column. Nor that spot. Over here, I can get up to that spot. And it'll be fine. Which leaves this spot in the middle. And very little precise mining left over after. I think that is the sweet spot. I'm getting rid of blocks I don't need to. It does leave a little gap down there, but I really could care less. Or couldn't care less, is the correct version of that. Kind of interesting how often those common sayings get misplaced or misused. Because it's not anyways, it's anyway. But you'll still very commonly hear anyways. There's no S on that actual phrase for the proper usage of it, anyhow. It's interesting. And I'm already down to 56. Granted, we've only done half of this. But we're barely an hour in. So I'd like to call this experiment of this a thrilling success. And that only did a line of... So I'd cut off a lot more of that than I needed to. Or I didn't cut as much of that off as I could have. I think it's the correct wording I need. Hey, boop. Actually, let me get rid of the gravel first. Don't gotta deal with that. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. And you. Hey, boop, 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 boop. All of that. Thank you. Yep. Perfect. Honestly, the good thing about having this huge project is for the first time in a good minute, I just was able to watch the ridiculously long VODs. I literally spent the afternoon, Billy Bob popped in a few times as I was going through it, because I was just chilling out in the Passion SMP VC. Wanted to come through and check and make sure I got these. And I was literally sitting watching a 5-hour D&D VOD. from some of my favorite creators. And before that, I was watching through an hour-long Hermitcraft episode because Corrales finally posted again. And before that, I was watching Markiplier's playthrough of the newest Resident Evil. Stack of ancient debris. Oh, my stars. I should expect no less. I really shouldn't. You ever gonna make that bank? I'm not sure if that's like a fully joke thing or if you actually intend on doing that. I think it still would be funny if you just pooped out a bank in the middle of the server. I don't even care if it gets used. I think it should be funny. I know I still need to go do the temple. That's gonna be a next week thing. Hey, boop. I can get away with this spot safely, which leaves me with this spot safely. Ugh! Don't you dare! Don't, oh my goodness. There's an exact amount of blocks here. You suck. Out of my face. I can't place anything because I have toggle place on and I'm in the middle of the staircase. We'll see how that ends up. Sometimes it picks up extra blocks that I don't need, but I'm probably gonna have to run for more spruce planks. Granted, I had like a surprising excess after the Elder one, so you never know. But I'd much prefer, less. That is an entity that got picked up in the schematic. That is not actually there. I prefer far less of creepers exploding the things I'm actively building. That'd be preferred. Boop, boop. I think what I just did is probably the best way to go about this. Starting from that side and then moving over to here. Because then I don't actually have to really think it out a lot aside from lining it up on that end. And then making sure I don't chop off too much on this side. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of this and trying to figure out the exact spot. Because I can just play off of whatever edge is here, and then I don't have to remember whatever's going on the stair side. I can just work off of the roof. Also, oh, nope. I seriously thought that cave was the bottom down there, but we're not actually that far. Already down at 41. Still, it's barely been a few minutes since the last time I mentioned how fast we're doing this. So genuinely, I think this is the fastest way to go about this. Because we've made decent progress in very little time. Excuse me! Me saying no more creepers please was not an invitation. It just isn't. Get rid of all. Yeah, this is absolutely the best way to go about this. Very little mining required on my end. Aside from the hammers bonking everything out. Very little work. Very little intellectual work here. This is the ideal. Very little work for maximum efficiencies. Efficiencies? Efficiency. Oh, there I go. And apparently I've already chomped through a whole bunch of my rockets. And my food. Fix this up. I did restock my food. Stole from some of my excess stock. And this block, or this one, we'll keep this singular stack, but then I'm going to fill the rest of my inventory with planks. Who's making more lag? Me with thousands of stacks of blocks floating about? Or Billy Bob, aka Race Car, loading in a large amount of chunks? And also netherite mining, apparently. Unless that random factoid happened to be just a fun fact. Let me flatten this back out again. Now I don't know how I'm supposed to math. No, not no more. Okay. So the answer is now me. And with my thousands of blocks floating on the ground. Or me fly now. So no netherite mining. Got it. So chunk loading. Then it's hard to say. It depends on how fast you're going through the chunks, how much our server can actually handle, and just how many blocks I can mine at once. I can usually safely get to this spot, and then I only have to repair very little. And then I can go to here, and then I think I could safely get away with this spot even. Yeah. Yeah, boop. And then there's just a few I missed. And I gotta fill in. Boop. So suddenly, if I don't care about filling in under the places that don't need to be filled in, this goes by way faster. Yeah, boop. Get rid of all of that. And blah, 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 blah. And let's switch Aru around. Give me some granite. Thank you. So I can fix that little spot. And it shouldn't be too hard to grab a little bit of stone. Thank you. I imagine it shouldn't be too easy considering there's a giant pile floating right there for me dunking it out of my inventory. Yeah, just give me a little granite. Thank you. Give me back the spruce. No, I want the spruce. Thank you. Let me just casually refill from the backpack. And then, yeah, that's safe to do again. Right there, so I have very little to repair. You know what, yeah. Just do that. Less I actually have to deal with, the better. I think that completely removes me having to precisely mine on the side, actually. Yeah, there's just these 3 blocks that got left over. Fantastic! Finding more and more ways to optimize this even as I've had it optimized. And we're down at 23. In, again, just a few minutes. Is that a charged creeper head? Also, welcome. If you want any stone or ores, feel free to take them. Because I have way too many. I mined all of the copper I got from... I mined all the copper I got from mining out the mountainside over on this end of my starter base. I ended up with... I think it was like 2.5 stacks, something like that, of coal blocks? Not like coal itself. No. Coal blocks. I haven't used coal in ages, and I will never need coal ever again. I also brought these down here. I've been using lava for so long, and I never need torches anymore, unless I feel like going around lighting up the entire server. So, I just have a ridiculous backstock of coal, and I'm continuing to grow my backstock of lapis, and iron, apparently, very slightly. Little bit of gold, not as much as you'd think, unfortunately. Yeah, that spot's fine. And it makes this spot fine, and yeah, just YOLO it. It's saving me more time. I'm not gonna bother. 2 stacks of gold blocks. Nice. I just don't really bother with ores after I'm done needing them. The only one I kind of bother with is redstone, because it's nice to have a little bit of backstock of that. But I have like a stack of redstone blocks, and I will never need any more than that, because I don't do enough redstone for me to want that. I don't do complex redstone machines. I much prefer dealing with complex Minecraft mechanics and making that into, technically, something redstone. I much like my iron farms, and I guess technically my rice farm falls into this. And the crop farms and the villager trading halls I do. I much prefer those over anything else. I will leave the fancy stuff to the professionals. I need not more in life. Even if it's amazing to have a ridiculously overpowered farm that you only ever need to run once, you'll never need to run it again, and then that farm is just kind of useless in your world. I'd much rather have a consistent passive farm that slowly collects off to the side. Like, hold on, we're gonna derail everything. I'm right here at the bottom. I don't care. I'm gonna derail everything. I want to check on my gunpowder farm, because I have a passive gunpowder farm that runs pretty much anytime anyone's at spawn, and it's just, while it is just out of range when I'm at my base up above, it still runs. So it's not a lot, admittedly. I think I've been stealing from it on and off. But 200 gunpowder still ain't nothing to sniff at. Try and collect that by hand. You're gonna hate it. It definitely doesn't help. It's just out of range. I keep my chunks very low and my simulation chunks very low when I'm playing this, just so everything runs well. I completely forgot how I've been doing this entire thing. So it is just out of range when I am at my base right now. Oh, that is not what I need to do. There we go. It was a lot better. It ran so much better when I actually stayed down here. But this is super far down to regularly hang out at. So I just don't bother with regularly hanging out down here anymore. Unless I need to come running down for some farm or another. Or I feel like AFKing the Skelly farm. Toggle easy play off, so I can do this. And then place the block I need right here. So I can just bunk. Thank you, Big Ham. You are literally holding this project on your shoulders, as per normal. As per actually this entire base. I don't know if I would have committed to the base I have if I did not have this hammer, honestly. It would not be the same. I would have chosen something much smaller and maybe not done it at all. But we have the lovely hammers, and we got them just before I started on this base, so I never have to think about that. How close I was to absolute insanity. And then this would be the last chunk of this that I really need to do. Hey, it's Emerald Deep Slate ore. Hold on, I'm stealing that. That shit's rare. Give me that. Hold on. Give me that. You're rare, boy. Into my backpack. I think I've only gotten like 2 pieces, maybe 3. Yeah, that makes my 3rd piece of Deep Slate Emerald ore. Because I think it is technically the rarest one in the game right now. I believe it is. Or it's very close to being the rarest. I know it's a competition between diamond stone ore, or stone diamond ore, and the Deep Slate Emerald. Because both are extremely hard to come across now. But yeah, in like a half hour, we got this entire thing done. So I think I need to rely far more on the Destructor Hammer, and now we have the best way to go about this. That takes very little effort on my part. Let me actually walk out of the way so I don't fall down with this. That's fantastic. Sir, don't you dare. No, you go in the pit yourself. Thank you. Let's mite out a little bit of this so I don't... Excuse me. So lovely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I will deal with you later. Re-terraforming that is. Hello, welcome back. Goodbye. Thank you. Have a nice day. Don't forget your complimentary cranberry on your way out. Hey, boop boop. Oh, big stretch. I have my cat right next to me in his cat tree. Big stretch. You need booty scratch? No booty scratch. Very happy kitty, yes. Hi! You want a head scratch? You a little bit? Oh, shoulder blades, yes. Happy kitty, yes. Little bit of pat. Some booty pats. And curled back up. Very happy. And of course he has to stick, excuse me. He has to stick his tail right over my water bottle. You're trying really hard here. That's what you get for doing that. Excuse me. Oh, I don't. Yeah, I don't. I do not have stone. I don't have stone here. I don't have stone there. There's no stone to be found. I'm trying to make this sound like the Sam I Am thing, and I'm failing horribly. Give me stone. Not. I did say stone. I wanted to say spruce. I don't know why I said stone. I've immediately forgotten what I'm doing again. That's base. This spot. Thank you for sleeping through the night, Billy Bob. Boop. And fill in all of these spots. The one downside is the destructor hammers do not mine. They're purely a pickaxe. They don't do any shovels. Anything that needs a shovel or should be mined by a shovel. So it doesn't get rid of the gravel for me. It used to, actually. Fun fact. In older versions, or either in older versions or in early versions of the mod, because I remember specifically using this in early Colony Craft 3-4 odd years ago now. Probably about 3 years ago now then. Because I did the 4-year stream anniversary recently. Early on into me trying to do Colony Craft, this was how I even found out about destructor hammers in the first place, because I tried multiple other things first. Because you can find like a triple pickaxe and triple shot. I forget what I'm doing! I got too busy talking. Also, welcome back. And then I ended up with destructor hammers, and I would specifically put a block of netherrack when I was going netherite mining in the middle of a bunch of gravel or soul sand or whatever, and I would use the destructor hammers to get rid of it for me, because it would destroy it, but it wouldn't drop it. Was the only catch. But they don't do that anymore. They simply just do not. It's probably a config thing that I could change. But it's probably just more fair to have it just not. Oh dear. Just countless charged creeper heads. Because what else are you gonna do on a Wednesday night? Obviously, you're gonna hunt for charged creepers. Duh. That's what all the cool kids are doing. I love, like, I want to see specifically a chart, not just of, like, the turn of popularity of Minecraft, but specifically, I want to see a popularity chart of kids, like, we're talking, like, 10-year-old, 11-year-olds here. 10-year-old, 11-year-olds liking and hating Minecraft. Because there is, I remember specifically not that long ago, no, that was actually quite a few years ago now, huh? Well, I remember when I would volunteer back at my elementary school when I was in middle school or so, that this group of little boys was like, do you play Roblox? Do you play Minecraft? I'm like, yeah, because I don't care. I've never cared about being considered popular or any of that bull. I don't care if you think I'm a weirdo for playing Minecraft. I'm just gonna play Minecraft. Why would I be talking to you? I don't care. Leave me alone. Let me go back to just enjoying my goddamn day. Anyway, I would love to see a popularity chart, a statistics chart of the dips of people thinking Minecraft is absolutely cringe and think it's the best thing ever. Also, similarly, I want to see this with anime. I want to see the dips of people thinking anime is the cringiest thing ever and the absolute love and popularity of it. Because I feel like the dip is going to be right around COVID. I have a feeling that's what it's going to be. I think that can be said for a lot of things, though. There's still some things, odds and ends here, fandom stuff. I've been seeing this conversation pop up, too. That fandoms got way more toxic and a lot less enjoyable to be in after COVID because quote-unquote normies started finding fandom and taking over. Which is definitely an extreme opinion, but I can see the truth in it of people trying to make it like, oh, I'm not cringe in said fandom, I do such and such thing. I forgot what I'm doing immediately. And I have a feeling I'm gonna do this every single time. So I can see the grain of truth in it. But I think it was also just exasperated by pre-existing problems within fandom and fandom etiquette. And I think generally just not being kind and considerate of new people and being like, hey, I know you probably didn't know this. Here's some kind of unsaid fandom etiquette. Can you please be respectful of this? This is what we do in this fandom. Or we don't say this thing in this fandom because it's related to this thing. Or this really problematic creator. And people being like, oh, okay, I'm new in this fandom. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Yes, thank you for telling me. Instead of, you know, just berating people, which is what usually happens. Honestly, I feel like a lot of things would be solved if we just was more considerate of people not knowing things and let ourselves and each other have the grace of, I don't know what I'm doing. Please help me. If I'm doing something you don't like, tell me. But also recognizing when people are just being weird and controlling. And it's just not fun. They're just telling you not to do stuff just so you don't do it. As with all things, in proportion. There's a word I want that starts with an M, I think. It's not proportion, though. Moderation! In moderation. There's the word I want. 24 netherite ingots. Math. 116 ancient debris, I think. I've immediately forgotten what I was doing, and I'm gonna do this every single time. In 3 blocks. I hate that I know for a fact 3 blocks is like some odd 108 ancient debris, if I'm correct, because I've had to make the destructor hammer, netherite destructor hammer too many times. So that's 27 ingots. 27 times 4. Can make it. Oh no. 27 times 4? No, that'd be like 128, right? Wait, I still have slash calc. Or 27 times 4. What did it? Why? Why did it give me 13,392? What? What? I do not think that 27 times 4 gives that number. Is it trying to give me stack? Okay, hold on. Let me try this again. No, that is... That's not correct. 27 times 4. I just want... Yeah, it is 108. I was right. Thank you for the pats while I had a minor meltdown. Why was it trying to... I don't know. If I tried it again... Is it because of the item I'm holding? No, I don't know why it's trying to give me Is it trying to think of stacks? Plus... Is it trying to do stacking plus 4? 27 times 64. Is that a close number? No! No, it isn't. I don't know what it's trying to do. Because 27 times 64 is 17,000, not 12,000. Or that's not even 17,000. That's not even 12,000. That's 1,700. That's 1,700. I don't know where it's getting that number. That is a very interesting number, considering all I did was type /calc. AKA calculator. I do not know. I do not know, and I will not understand. Thank you, Kofi Bot. I love how 108 was just sitting in the back of my mind, waiting for the day to be used again. Brain knew. I didn't trust Brain. Brain just knew. It knows. Shoulda listened. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. Bop. And then, did I do those ones? No, I did not. I need to get these as well. Pop. Get rid of all that. Beep, pop. And there goes race car. You better boop, boop, boop. Off to do race car things. Yep. Race cargo room. Because that's what race car do. If you question, it is your doom. I should have just cut off that middle verse there. Should have just left that race car room. If you question, it's your doom. That rolls off the tongue a lot more. Not even like it's your doom because of race car causing said doom. He just never answered, and you're left wondering for the rest of your life what in the world just occurred. But all you need to know is race car room. I got a pillow Velcro to my windowsill for Dusty, and he just leaned over, put a paw on it, rested his chin, he's all curled up. Oh. This is why I moved my desk so my desk is right next to Dusty's cat tree. It's also the most efficient way to keep my room. But it leaves me right next to Dusty all day, and it makes me and him very happy because I can just love on him whenever I want. I assume that means cause. You meant cause. I cause confusion. I am like a Pokemon. That's one of my favorite things you've said. And I have a lot of favorite things you've said. That's definitely a top 10. That's a top 5. I think still what hits the top for me as some of the weirdest conversations we've had is from the Golf Around stream. Sleeping Through This Night, thank you. Where you just like, I do not know song. And then I replied, yet you sing. I don't even remember why or how that came up. But it did. There's probably more in the quotes channel I'm just forgetting off the top of my head. There definitely is more. I have quite a few odd interesting quotes from the lot of you. From just editing through my videos. Mainly from myself, because I forget the shit I say. And then I need to get rid of all that. Place in that. Oh. And those. I think we could actually seriously get this entire thing done this stream. I am standing at 55. I can see the bottom. We're about 35 minutes in, an hour and 35 minutes in. Which, yeah, sure, that means I have 25 minutes left. But look how far we are into this. We're over 50% of the way. I dare say we're over 75% of the way done. Just quoted myself. I gotta see a quote shadow. Fantastic. Yeah, there's... yes, the fantastic quote for me from terraforming the side of the base. Oh, I have already forgotten what it was. This one breaks me like a McDonald's ice cream machine. I need to send that to Pumpkin. I need to send that to Pumpkin. I don't think he knows I've said that. And I think it's imperative that he knows I said that. He probably has some insane quotes from me here or there. I know we have a few pinned in our DMs. What do I have? Hold on, what do I have pinned? I don't think we have a lot of pins on this one. We have a few recipes pinned. Let me go look. I keep 2 Discord accounts, so I have to check both. I have to check both. Okay. Apparently I got a message from here. I'll explain that later. Where's pinned? Nope. Pinned. Pins. Do we have any quotes in here? A lot of these are for me. Another recipe. Random things, another recipe. I think that's crocheting instructions, another recipe. Uno dinero, which is an inside joke from a ridiculous story that's been traded by word of mouth through several people and got to us. Some things I want for, like, some glasses chains I want. The overly detailed Lenny face. I will pull that up in a second. Hold on, let me save that so I can pop that up on stream in a second. Snickerdoodle cheesecake cookies. This is not a recipe. This is purely those words put together. Go strip with Mama Pumpkin. Another recipe. Website. A reminder about specific specific fabric he wants. Another recipe. Great. Another recipe. Him insulting me pinned for some reason. It says get fucked with a heart. Another recipe. A pin for a couple pins for some reason. Some old art. A cute picture of Dusty as a baby. This is from 2 years ago. And it's from Pumpkin saying, I like how you pretend to not be gay, but I've seen less fruit at a farmer's market. Dragons aren't going good this year. All we got was a tail. Old Man Johnson down the road got a whole dragon. That's a reference to Great Scatsby? Lord Scatsby. It's Lord Scatsby. Skyrim randomness? Something like that. Screenshot of me, Eggman's announcement. I think those are just more websites. Another pin. Neil Gaiman for some reason. Oh, Neil Gaiman's bagel recipe. More random memes. Another recipe. The Voltron screenshot. And a Braille emoji. So no, we do not have quotes in that, pinned in that. And I need, hold on, there's a text I got. I need to remember to actually reply to it later, because now that I've seen it, it's not going to show up when I turn off Do Not Disturb. So let me keep that up on my phone, so I don't forget. A lot of this is from the cave, so let me run over here. I think most of my quotes at this point, the random shit I've said, just exists on the quote channel. I think most of it is there now. I'm half tempted to add a quote channel to the Parasite Discord for the streams. What's the oldest quote in here? No donkey, only suggestion from Mysteria. Because Lilac asked for the quote channel during this season. Following this, you're hideous, but you're fixed. Donkey's messed up textures. Oh, here we go. Here's a race car quote. Drowning is fun. Misty's don't look at me in that tone of voice. Every kiss begins with ketamine. Well, that's my good deed for a while, also for race car. Penguin, I've said I fucked that up peasantry. I can't remember the context of that one. I could not tell you for the life of me why in the world I would say that one. But I did. I know that's a me quote, even though it doesn't say it. I know that's a me quote. I couldn't tell you how that's a me quote, but that's a me quote. You poor thing. Just stuck. Speaking of poor thing, hi! There's a fluffy foot in my face, and he won't let me trim it. Oh, you poor thing. Does your pathing know how to do? No? Okay. Oh, I got rid of these. Oh, you suck. Hopefully, the explosions stay minimal from here on out, and I don't have... What if I switch this to air and make it yes? That's why... The why is probably gonna be because. I still love what if I switch this to air and make it yes. Because I know exactly why that situation occurred, and I know exactly what I'm talking about, but it's not gonna make sense to a damn soul. It just exists. What if I switch this to air and make it yes? I love that way too much. You know, it's almost time for me to end stream, because I'm laughing at my own insane bullshit again. If I'm becoming a giggly fuck, it's time to end. Almost. We still have another 20 minutes. And I should be able to get this done in 20 minutes. At least the mining part. I don't know about everything else. I'm willing to push stream back. I'm not willing to pull stream back. I retract my statement because I ended later. I started later than I should have. And ending at the correct 2 hours is already gonna cut into my reading time. Perfectly, might I add, but it will. Yeah, I should have expected it. I should have expected it. I didn't somehow. I should have. But I didn't. I really should have, though. I should have. I did say it at the beginning of the stream. Oh, we're gonna look away for 20 minutes and Raceco's gonna go kill the dragon. It's gotta happen at least once. I had a fun situation this week. This all started... The way we got into this situation. Our van is a fun little thing, and for a long time now it's had like it's had a random slew of issues, but it's fine. One of these issues that we joke, it's gotta happen once, is for some reason the key fob is really sensitive, specifically for the left side door. Not like the front door, because this is a automatic door. It's not the front driver door. No, it's the left side door. That if you dare touch the key fob too much, if it rattles too much, it will open the door. And it has to happen at least once every time we go shopping. Grocery shopping. Every time we go grocery shopping, it's gotta happen at least once that we get in or out of the car and the left door opens a second time. It's gotta happen at least once. For the first time in like a good year, we had a no, it's gotta happen at least once. Because my dad used the van the other day, rolled down the windows as per normal because of all the frosts and how cold it's been. And the passenger side window just popped out of its place. Thankfully, it was perfectly fine, but the passenger side just had no window. Just gone. Not there anymore. Thankfully, it was only the track, but we still had to wait for like the repair place to get a new track for the door, for the like window of the door. So we ended up with my grandma's car, which is completely different from what my mom usually drives. So that was a fun experience, and I was the only one that thought, hey, maybe I should actually know how the car works beforehand. We had to drive it back, so I rode shotgun with my dad. He's like, okay, I use this car a fair bit. Here's this, and this thing. And then he was cleaning it the day before we went grocery shopping. And he's like, okay, there's this, and this thing. I'm like, okay, we could probably fit this many bags in the back. We could probably get away with this and that. Why are you taking damage? That is why. And then we get into the car shopping day. My mom's like, it's not starting. I'm like, you have to put your foot on the brake and then you can press start engine. Because it's a weird-ass, like, electric, but not electric. I think it's a hybrid. I don't know enough about cars. But for the first time in ages, we didn't have it has to happen at least once. And just had a normal frickin' shopping day. Yeah, boop boop. It's weird. It's weird being in a smaller car, though. I'm so used to the van and its giant back trunk. Thankfully, we do finally have the van back. We got it back today. Excuse? I don't have... There we go, andesite. It's like, out of all the blocks I've been picking up, I don't have that? Also, we're just about finishing up on this. I think we can get the mining done. I'm not going to get the build itself done, but I can get the mining done this stream. Which is far more than last time. This is about the same amount of mining I had to do. Last time, we didn't even make it halfway. I made it 50 blocks down out of 120. We did not make it halfway. This time, we're going to completely finish mining, and then it's going to take me like 10-20 minutes of building columns real quick. I'm going to have to do very minimal catch-up for this. There's another thing I wanted to catch up. Oh, I was gonna get rid of the crop farm off camera. Have you seen the industrial district? Not since the last time y'all brought me over there. Because I know you guys were talking about this thing and that. I believe you got some bamboo farmers. I can't remember what all you were showing me the last time we were over there. I know you were showing me cool things. Moss, okay. Oh yeah, I think you guys did show me that you moved the moss farm over. Moss sugarcane, yes. I did see those. I'm also assuming that's where the random boat in the Nether Hub has come from. If you have any idea why that is there. And a Blaze and Breeze farm. I have not seen those. But I can check those out either tomorrow or in the next several days. So we're just gonna bust our ass for the next 10 minutes here to get this done. Because I would like to go to bed knowing I at least got this done. And I found the best way to do it, and I will never have to do it again this season. I say, knocking on wood. I better not have to, I swear to stars. I will actually go crazy if I do. 10.8k gunpowder over here. Nice. Hey, boop. Because I've been working on so much stuff here, there, and a lot of what we've been doing lately is terraforming. I just haven't been burning through rockets. I used to go through them all the frickin' time, but now I don't even use Flight 3 rockets anymore. I just use normal-ass rockets. Honestly, I wouldn't change it. The Flight 1 gives me just the right amount of control when I'm leaving my base. When I'm leaving the MegaBase down here. 2 rockets is just the perfect control to actually survive getting up and down this place. Hey, boop. Get rid of those. And then this little bit over here. This bit here. This bit here. Yeah, this is by far the fastest I will ever do this thing. And I am so grateful I decided, you know what, let's experiment and see if the Destructor Hammer is actually more useful. Because, wow, yes, it absolutely is. And I am very glad I thought to be curious. And I think it's an important note to mention the second part of Curiosity Killed the Cat. Because satisfaction brought it back. I think that's how it goes. I'm pretty sure that's the second half of it. It doesn't rhyme as much as it should, though. It feels a little unsatisfying of a rhyme. But that's okay. Some rhymes are just silly. Yeah, but... Please, just let me hit those blocks. Thank you. If you care a lot less, suddenly you can get things done so much faster, and it's quite amazing. Had to replant some of the bamboo. Oh no. You lose out on a lot of product, or... Do I have... No. Give, thank you. And that's all pretty dandy. Except for these. And I already did that side, so we're only focused on this side. And we're now at the very last stretch of this. Apparently, I was just a little bit off. A small part of the farm that lost bamboo. Oh, dude. At least it's a pretty good farm, too. So it's not too much. And you just kind of needed the bamboo for, scaffolding anyhow, yeah? Pretty sure that's what it was for. Nope, I'm missing a spot there. And almost... The compulsion to just stay on long enough to get this done is there. But I know... That would be insane. Maybe... I have another 7 minutes. Can I seriously, genuinely speedrun this and get the entire thing done in the hour and a half we've been working on it? Because I might just be able to. A spot right there that I can't quite get. Because I might just be able to. And again, I have leftover spruce planks. There's still a little bit I need to get right there. Which is the first thing we're gonna do. The industrial district platform is made from bamboo. Ah, okay. I think last time I was there was a different product. That's why I didn't quite remember. And we no longer need the destructor hammer. It has very well served its purpose. Thank you, Big Ham. Everyone say thank you, Big Ham. Yeah, bonk. Smooth stone, okay. Yeah, I knew it was something else. So then it has been a good minute since I've been there, because I don't remember it being bamboo anymore. I just popped my clavicle. Fantastic. Every now and again, I get a very satisfying, very random bone pop. I think the last one I had... Oh, nice shot. The last one I had that was like, whoa, hey, how did I pop that? Was my sternum? And I know it was my sternum, because that was definitely felt like a bone pop. And it was particularly, like, in the middle of my sternum, right where it connected to her. I'm like, how did I do that? 1, 2... Damn, was it satisfying! My bones feel like they have giant balloons between them if I don't pop them. I just got a very crackly body for some reason, and I could not tell you why. I could not tell you how, what, when, where, why. I can just tell you I can pop most of the bones in my body, and the timer resets every day. I should probably pop my hips, actually. They feel like they need a good pop. Most of my stuff I think I can transition over to the same one. I like what me and Penguin did Industrial District. Nice. It's great when you can really be satisfied with your builds. I'm slowly getting better about actually being happy and letting myself just stick with the 80%. And not beating myself over, I didn't get this, that, or such and such thing done. Excuse me, place, thank you. Oop. Okay, you're the empty backpack. You're the normal one. You're empty, so... we go boop. Actually, probably boop. There we go. And then I'm just gonna fill my inventory with this, and then all of this. Spit out that. Fantastic. Actually, I do want switches. I do need to worry about the creeper up there, though. Excuse me. Excuse me, sir. Please leave. Hopping off. Alright, good night. Have a good day. And there you go. I think... I'm willing to stay on the extra few minutes to do the columns. Switch this out for that. There we go. Keep a little extra spruce plank on me. But yeah, we can genuinely get this done. We can't get absolutely everything done. But I can't get the little terraforming there that's done, so I will have to play catch-up for that. But I think we can get all of this done. Do I want to stay on for terraforming? Technically, don't you frickin' dare. Don't. Oh, nice shot. I hate that creepers don't always die with a one-shot maxed out bow. Because this is the most I can put on it. It's the flame, it's the punch 2, it's the power 5. I can't do more than that. But they don't always like to die in one shot, do they? So it's not always the greatest thing. Please fly down, thank you. Glide has taught me well how to handle the flight of this game. I picked up blocks I don't need to be picking up. Give me the random items I need, thank you. I will stay on longer than I should just because I can finish it right now and then I can have more time for other things tomorrow. Technically, this is bedtime procrastination and procrastinating the things I need to do after stream. But, it also means I have less to do tomorrow. So it's a little bit of both, really. And at this point, I no longer need the easy place. It is only a hindrance. I'm gonna take... we don't need these. And just use it for right here. And just temporarily do that. And then pop these all in my inventory. I can't start from the bottom to the top, so I don't have to do as much work here. Let's just do this, because I'm not doing easy place. I just will have both of these in my up bar. Actually, I don't even need that out anymore, I don't think. So I fully believe, in my heart of hearts, that we can absolutely get this done right here, right now. The columns, as long as I'm doing these at a decent pace, should be just fine. I don't see why this would take me exorbitantly long. So we're gonna do our best to handle these as we can. Torch. Another thing of not using easy place is, for some reason, torches can be kind of silly with easy place. I think it's purely just the upgraded torches are very silly about it, but I think the normal torches are too. It won't place correctly because it's fully... Torches are dependent on your player position for how they get placed. Same thing with the logs. So they are just very annoying when it comes to easy place. Now let me actually drink some liquids because my throat is dry. And I forgot more blocks, and we're gonna get lighting here in a second. Leave me alone. Goodbye. That bonked off of you. Goodbye. Thank you. I was barely able to mute in time for that sneeze. Thank you, Kofi Bot. Excuse me, sir. No, yeah. Stay back. Thank you. There's a baby child! I see you. I also see you all the way down there. That would have been cool if I made it the first time. Third time. Thank you. Hello, child. Goodbye. Thank you. Make it all the more annoying to get back up here. So the way I have to do these, so I don't have to take a bunch of fall damage or take a bunch of extra time, is we go up to... and then we continue on. We go boop. And fill all of these in as they should be. This is not correct. Excuse me. Leave my premises. Thank you. Go back to the afterlife. Appreciate it. Go up 2 blocks from the planks below. And then I fill from the top. I'm pretty sure that's just about the fastest way to do it, pretty much. We go 2 up from the spruce planks directly next to it. Oh, there we go. We love a bit of luck. Just a wee bit. And I'm able to jump and reach just about everything from there. Watch us take like an extra half hour. Because I, once again, underestimated how long I need to do, or how long I take to do any given thing. But we will see. We will see. We're only a few minutes over 2 hours at this point. And I'm usually bad about time perception anyway, especially this late in the day. I will use easy place for a second for these. The spruce planks ain't too much of a bother. Please, thank you. Fantastic. And hopefully the fact that I'm doing half of the torches right now will help so it's not so much of a problem later. Boop. Excuse me? Thank you. Excuse. Thank you. I did get the torch? Yes. Yes, I did. Sometimes it do be hard to tell. You just do. Brain tired. I have streamer brain and now tired brain and unmedicated brain. It is all the problem brains. But we're gonna do our best to work with it and actually finish this. The same day that I started it. Is that perhaps a little bit unhealthy considering the scale of the projects I take on? Yeah. Do I get them done regardless? Because I am an insane machine at times? Yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. I'll do some extra decor and little do I want to do terraform? We're not going to do terraforming today. I'm not going to make myself stay up that late. I imagine it's going to be another 10 minutes of this, and I don't want to be up too late, because I need to get other things done still before bed. And I did not post the VOD for today, so I need to actually add into my list before I forget that I need to do that tomorrow. So now, the VODs are going to be off by almost a week. They were going to be off by 5 days, they're not going to be off by 6. Unless I start doubling them up, which I'm half tempted to. But I think for the moment, I'm just going to let them be delayed, because I've been streaming so much. And I'd much rather let the VODs breathe a little bit and just post consistently one a day for the moment. And see how that does. Because that seems to actually be rather helpful for the VOD channel right now. YouTube's going, oh, hey, they actually post? Cool, we're gonna start sending your videos out to your fucking subscribers. Which is kind of important. Thanks, YouTube. I'd appreciate if you did that anyway, but fine. Granted, the VOD channel has a fraction of the amount of subscribers because it hasn't posted nearly as much, or the main source of my subscribers on the main channel has purely come from a few of the shorts that I've posted that have blown up. Every now and again, I'll get a really good one that gets a lot of people through. But because shorts and made videos are such a different community, I guess is the word I want to go for. They're very different styles of content. So that doesn't translate over as much, so it's a bit of a wonky number. It's like trying to compare Tumblr and Blue Sky followers. Yes, they're very similar platforms, but they're very different at the same time. Or like between TikTok and Shorts followers. Those are definitely two different communities, and they will make sure you know it. Oh. Did I get the ones up there? Yes, I did. And there's one little spruce plank up there that I missed. And I did the same thing there. So I'm gonna have to pay for that. Ooh. But I'm almost at the bottom of this, so there's not many more to go. That means we're about halfway through these columns. Where did my torches go? There they go. Boop. Up, 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 up. Can I make that? Yes, I can. Yes, I can, Sam I am. There we go, I finally made the Sam I am joke. I couldn't quite land it earlier, but now I got it. And then there's a column down there that I need to continue, because it didn't quite get finished when I first made this. It's like, butchered the schematic a little bit when I made it. And I need to probably place some temporary blocks around so I can properly do this. And I'm kind of tempted to fill in or do something there, but I'm not going to bother with it too much. It is what it is. I was still new to schematics when I made this thing. Or, I poorly placed this. Very poorly planned and placed the schematic. I'm not sure, I can't remember how new I was to schematics when I started this. Season 1 went on for a really long time, but we're only, I think, about 6 odd months into Season 2. Season 1, I believe, went on for almost a full year. Almost to date, actually. I think Season 2 started on the year anniversary of Season 1. Because that started in August, and we started this in August. Technically, If you want to get really picky about it and actually consider the actual day I would have started, because I had been recording for about 2 weeks prior to the first episode being posted, technically Passion SMP Season 1 did go on for a whole year. But if we go by video dates, then it almost went on for a full year. And we started Season 2 about the same time as Season 1. Excuse me? Place? None of those are in the correct spot. Up. And I'm gonna have to get up all the way up there to that random spot as well that I also missed, because yay! Up. That's actually also incorrect now I think about it. Up. I'm not gonna worry about the excess spruce. I do not care. I simply do not. Up. This is so great. It's a lot easier when I'm doing this just in the silence and watching videos on the side. Actually trying to keep up a brain, tired, knowing I'm working overtime when I shouldn't, is a whole nother thing. A doink doink. But also knowing how close I am to actually finishing this is great. And the fact with my big old brain, we did actually find a better way to do this. That was genuinely a faster way. That didn't take too much power, like brain power. And was ridiculously helpful. Is a great feeling. Don't gotta worry about that later. There we go. I'm gonna... Do I have... Yes, I have. Okay. Good. Is there any other ones I biffed? Yes, I did. Great to know. But that does mean there's only one more that I seriously messed up and I need to fix. So that does take a little bit of comfort. And I know once I reach that point, I will be almost done. And then we could cut this off there. Because I really, even though I want to, I really shouldn't stay long enough to do the terraforming as well. Even though it would take like 2 seconds, I would also want to do this thing and that thing and remind me of this thing, and then I'd be streaming for another hour or two and feel horrible because it pushes off my entire schedule by an hour. There's shit I gotta do, and I gotta make sure I start off tomorrow right so I can get everything I need to get done. That's quite a conundrum. That doesn't quite reach where I need it to. But the conundrum is easily solved by me not overworking myself and stopping the dopamine train in favor of the other dopamine train, which is getting ready for the next day and being able to plan all the things I want to do. Because at this point, my brain's working, because immediately after this, pretty much, I'm going to be pulling out my planners, pulling out my bullet journals, pulling out my common book, and going, okay, I was able to do this, this, and this thing today. I need to change the dates of the VODs that are going up, and the delay in said VODs. I need to change a lot of things. Is it stopping me from listening to my Minecraft parodies? No, it's just quiet. But if I don't have that correctly, then it won't let me listen to my Minecraft parodies. If you do not hear music, it's because you are not watching live. Live stream, it's the live music. Here's the other place I biffed! We're almost done! Ah, the joy of mistakes. A marker of your progress. Genuinely, actually. Sometimes you just need fresh set eyes. Boop. And bonk. And technically, because I spend a half hour I spent the first half hour of this stream, I'm gonna restart this sentence so I have a genuine clip that's really easy for me to use and doesn't sound really fucking weird. And technically speaking, because I spent the first half hour making this schematic, I did actually do this entire build, excavating and building it in 2 hours, technically speaking. But damn it, I'm gonna ride the technical. I like me a good loophole. You gotta respect a good loophole when you find it. Like decaf tea, which I'm gonna sip more of. So I can have my tea without the annoyance of it bugging out my ADHD medication. And we're gonna have a fun time seeing. I'm gonna switch over to a different medication. I'm currently on a short release, aka if you don't know anything about ADHD stuff, brain works really good for only a few hours. Long release, brain works about the same, but for longer. Pretty much is the TLDR there. Too long, didn't read. There's a bunch of other mumbo jumbo with that. But thankfully, the meds that I'm currently on that seem to be working really well. Thankfully, I got really lucky on the first set of meds I tried. Thanks to family history of it. Which is usually not a been there, done that thing. It's not a... Which usually isn't a common thing with ADHD. I know several of my friends with ADHD who are just like, yeah, no, I don't do meds, or I had to go through a lot of them before I found the ones I liked. I got lucky. I changed my dose once, and then stuck with it until now. But we're gonna have fun seeing how that affects me, but that's probably not gonna be noticeable for a couple more videos. But that is all of that. I'm gonna bring this down so I don't forget to do that. I'm gonna sleep so somebody else doesn't have to deal with it being nighttime the next time they log on. Probably gonna be me. But it's done. I did all of it. We're gonna ignore the fact that the terraforming is optional. But I did do the entirety of the staircase from top to bottom. So now I do have all of the entrances done. Technically speaking. I did say I like a good loophole. I'm going to use the loophole. Technically speaking, I got this done. Did I terraform everything around it and make it look pretty in this area? No, not yet. But by next stream it will be. And next stream we're gonna... Let me throw myself down here so we can have a nice clean transition later. And try not to die in the process. We're gonna come out over here. I'm gonna gut this off camera so we can replace it with a nice, lovely rice farm. You can't see that. That doesn't look like anything. Rice farm. Next stream. So that'll be it. Thank you all for joining me. I'll see y'all in the next one. Live notifications always go up on Discord. I do have Blue Sky and Tumblr. Those typically get build posts. I actually need to be posting several things to those. Mainly to Tumblr. Tumblr, I need to catch up on some of my builds. And post some screenshots from us doing all of this, because I did a lot of stuff today, and I have a lot of screenshots to share of work I've done. So, that'll be it. I've been streaming every night. It's been about 6 or 6:30 PST. Which is usually about 2 or 3 hours behind for most people if you're in, like, the middle of the US. I couldn't tell you if you're elsewhere in the world, I apologize. But that'll be it. VODs are about a week behind now. So this VOD won't show up. It's currently Wednesday until next Tuesday or so, I believe, unless I forget to post again. I think with all that said and done, that is actually it. Do I know anyone live to raid? No. So that will be it. Thank y'all for joining me. I'll see y'all tomorrow night for the crop farm. Have a good day. Have a good... I messed up my own outro. I hope you have a good one. Thank you all for joining me. I'll see you in the next one.